Okay.
No.
Good morning, and thank you for joining this live Community and Neighbourhood Scrutiny Board, which is taking place in line with the revised regulations. Please be aware that this meeting is being recorded. I'm Jenny Holmes, Scrutiny Coordinator. Present at the meeting are the following members: the Chair, Councillor Linda Bigham, Councillor Faye Abbott, Councillor Roger Bailey, Councillor Matty Heaven, Councillor Poydevan, Councillor John McNicholas, Councillor John Mutton, Councillor Robert Thay and Councillor Seamus Walsh. Cabinet members present are Councillor George Duggins, Leader of the Council, Councillor Patricia Heatherton, Cabinet Member for City Services, and Councillor Gavin Lloyd, Deputy Cabinet Member for City Services. Supporting the meeting is Usha Patel, Governance Services Officer, and other officers will introduce themselves before they present. May I remind everyone to please keep their microphones on mute and their cameras turned off unless you've been invited to speak by the Chair. If members of the committee or officers, if members of the committee or officers wish to speak, please do so by using the raise hands function, which I will bring to the Chair's attention. Apologies. I'll now hand you over to the Chair of the meeting, Councillor Linda Bigham.
Thank you very much, Jenny, and good morning, everyone. Usha, can I ask you please to start us off with item number 1, apologies and substitutions.
Thank you, Chair. Apology from Councillor Maya Ali this morning. Thank you. No substitutes.
Thank you very much. Item number 2 then, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations? I hear none. Thank you. Item number 3 then, minutes, to agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of December 2020.
Move them, Chair.
Thank you, John. Do you have a seconder for that?
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Those are then moved. And 3B, are there any matters arising from those minutes that aren't on the agenda? I hear none. Thank you very much. Moving then to item 4, the materials recycling facilities plant. And can I ask the Cabinet Member, Councillor Patricia Heatherton, whether you'd like to start us off on that item, Patricia? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in terms of, this has just gone through planning committee, so I know Layla has prepared a really good presentation for you all to see about the real sort of hard details. I wanted to talk about some of the softer things, really, in so much that when I say softer, it's about everything that surrounds the MRF. When we were looking at making changes, we involved local councillors, Councillors Richard Brown and Councillor Bailey, who's here today. And, we listened to what was being said. We also involved tree wardens and also the wardens of the wildlife, 70 acres of the most wonderful woodland where there's wonderful wildlife next to the Charter House. So we visited on several occasions and we took note of what was going on. One of the things that I have to say that I need to share with people, because to me, I'd never seen anything like it before. These huge, magnificent trees that their roots spread out, have been there for years, were actually uplifted and resettled, and I've never seen anything like it, but it is amazing. From that, we also took shoots from them. So those softer things that people are never aware of, because we talk about the hard issue, are really important as we go forward here. Along with that is the management of traffic around that particular area, and in particular footpaths and cycleways. And people know that we're already, the Asda roundabout on the London Road is already, we know it needs bringing up to the 2021 specs rather than being 40 years ago when it was first put there. So it's looking at everything in the round, but I'll hand over to Layla now because she will take you through the sort of more specific details. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heatherton. Over to you then, Layla.
Thank you, Chair. So my name's Layla Shannon. I'm the project manager for the materials recycling facility. And I'll provide you with an update on progress on where we are with the facility this morning. So first of all then, as Councillor Heatherton just alluded to, we went to Planning Committee in January where we received approval to go ahead with the project. At that Planning Committee, there was a lot of discussion around some of the objections that we received in relation to the facility, which were concerned with traffic on the London Road and air quality within the city. And a couple of the conditions that came through the Planning Committee will help us to address that, including a traffic management plan to address residents' and members' concerns, which will be signed off by the highways team prior to any operations happening on site. That's also a condition of our environment permit, which we'll get from the Environment Agency. So we'll have sort of dual authority looking over that there to make sure that we're doing that safely and in accordance with as agreed from the planning condition. We also have biodiversity offset plan in place with the ecologist from Coventry. The ecology plan that we put together came from conjunction with conversation with local ward members and also following consultation with members of the public and looking to expand and enhance further the River Sherborne corridor and do further work around site for us. We also will be looking to make improvements to the footpath that runs between Shortley Road and Humber Road and upgrading that footpath to include low level lighting and make it suitable for pedestrians and cycle users to the benefit of the local community, but also to provide that sort of pedestrian access to employees coming into site. I'll give you now a update on the project evolution. So I think we originally came to Scrutiny back in 2019 when we had the feasibility study for the facility and looking to go forward with the procurement of contractors. During the course of the last 15 to 18 months, there have been a number of changes within the project, including the addition of 2 further partner councils. When we originally came and produced the feasibility study on this, we had 6 partners, which included Coventry, Walsall, Solihull, and 3 of the Warwickshire authorities. Subsequently, Stratford and Warwick have both joined on as full partners, which has meant that we've increased the size of the facility. We were looking initially at something between 120 and 150,000 tonnes per annum, but have increased that to 175 to account for growth from the partner councils over the 20-year life of the project. In line with increasing the facility capacity, we've also increased the equipment that's necessary to do that and the building size to accommodate the larger facility. Also included in this, we have equipment that will be in there to recognise the emerging government legislation around plastics, anticipating in 2023 that low-grade flexible plastics such as carrier bags and film will be required to be included in curbside collections. This facility will allow us to do that separation. We're also have moved forward with a very advanced technological solution, which I'll come back into more detail as we go further through the presentation. Which includes use of robotics and optics, making this one of the most advanced facilities in the world. We have also included an array of photovoltaic panels on the roof of the facility. We have been working with CSWDC, who operates the energy from waste facility adjacent to the MRF site, to make arrangements for a private wire connection, taking power from the energy from waste facility, but also looking to produce our own power on site through the photovoltaic panels on the roof. We also have been subject to a very nervous insurance market, particularly in the waste industry, and as a result of the global pandemic, which has meant that our insurance costs are likely to be higher than we initially envisaged them to be. But we're working with an insurance provider at the moment, going through the specification for the process equipment to make sure that we have as much sort of precautionary measures in place as we possibly can to keep that premium as low as we can. As I said before, last time I came to Scrutiny, it was for a feasibility study, and we were looking to go out to market to procure a process contractor who will be responsible for the solution inside the building, so the equipment that will separate out the materials, and also a civils contractor to do the groundwork and the building construction. That process has taken around 12 months, and it's been done exclusively via Teams as a result of COVID, which has made it a little bit challenging at times. That being said, we have now concluded the process equipment contractor with the selection of a preferred bidder, which is a company called MachineX, who are Canadian. And we are at the final stages with a single civils contractor and anticipating that we'll receive their final tender submission at the end of February. The company operating the facility from day one will be Sherborne Recycling, which will be wholly owned by the 8 partner councils, but work as a private company. We are waiting on now the final tender submission from our civils contractor, which will allow us to draw together the final business case and present costs, which we're anticipating to come through in March. So I'd like to provide you a bit more detail about our process contractor and about what the solution will look like. So MachineX are a Canadian company. They have a lot of experience. They're 50 years old and have been working in this industry during that whole time. They have a lot of facilities across the United States and Canada, and more facilities coming on board across the continent in Europe. As a technology provider, they have developed for us what will be a technologically advanced solution, the most advanced of its kind in the UK. We'll be looking at having a lot of optics and robotics, which will be joined together with AI technology to enable us to increase the purity of the materials going through the facility, reducing the amount that would go to landfill from rejected materials. It will also offer us flexibility as we progress over the life of the project and over the course of the next 20 years, when any changes arise in composition of materials as a result of changes to consumer habit, but also legislation. I mentioned before that we're anticipating low-grade films to be a targeted material. Over the course of the next 20 years, I'd expect more changes to come through similar. By using the AI technology and the optics, we're able to flex the plant to target different materials for separation. We'll be processing the materials at 4 to 7.5 tonnes per hour on a 2-shift, Monday to Friday, with potential occasional Saturday morning working to support the partner councils where we have bank holidays. MachineX, who are the company who will be operating the facility, are equally as excited as we are to be developing this facility with us. Before I go any further, I can see there's a hand raised. Is that a question that you'd like me to answer before we move forward?
Councillor Biggin, do you want to take questions now, or do you want to do them at the end of the presentation?
At the end of the presentation, please.
Okay, no problem. Our process contractor, as I mentioned, we've not yet concluded the procurement on the process at the civils contractor, but we are working with a single bidder who are very experienced in civils works. They are in the process at the moment with us of going through an exercise of value engineering prior to their final tender submission. By selecting our preferred bidder for the process solution prior to Christmas, they have an opportunity to look at the building, make it as suitable as possible, make any amendments to suit the final solution before putting final costs in there for us. We're also working with them to support the improvements at Whitley Depot, as the access route for the MRF will go through the Whitley Depot site. The next steps in this process for us are around the final tender submissions, which we're expecting to come through at the end of February. We'll then tidy up our financial modelling as we move into early March and be able to present a final business case and present to Cabinet members an update. This will allow us to award contract on the 1st of April and works to start on site in May. We think it will take around 4 to 6 weeks for that sort of process between contract award and mobilisation. The process of construction will take roughly 2 years. The first 12 to 15 months largely focus on the civils, and then we will be having MachineX come over and start installing the equipment. We'll start the commissioning at the back end of 2022 and be fully operational by summer to spring 2023. The next stages for us then moving forward are also to start engagement with a shareholder panel, and we'll be looking to establish a meeting towards the back end of this month and into early March. Recommendations this morning for members are that the Community and Neighbourhood Board are recommended to consider the note and contents of the presentation. And that draws to a conclusion at the end of my presentation. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Layla. Councillor Heatherton, would you like to come in again before Layla starts to take the questions, or are you happy for the questions to go ahead?
I just would like to say that, you know, one of the things that we're looking at is being prepared for the future. Everything is changing so fast in the recycling world, Chair, that one of the things that is really important here is this facility will make sure that it can do that. And as I say, you know, by working with other partners, it will make such a difference to us. So it will mean that we're not transporting waste all around on other roads. So thank you for giving us the opportunity, and happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heatherton. Can we take questions now then for Layla?
So we've got questions from Councillor Mutton at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Mutton, would you like to go ahead?
Thanks, Linda. Before I ask the question, can I say how delighted I am that we've got to this stage? It's something that I believe, you know, was absolutely imperative for the city to do. I know we used to take all our recycling to Warsaw, then I believe it's somewhere else. That's no good for the atmosphere, no good for pollution or anything else. But I do have two questions, if I may. One, we read that the government intends to introduce legislation on plastics. Could I ask if they decide that plastics either cannot be exported or cannot be recycled, what we would, you know, do with the plant? I know we can still burn them, they wouldn't go into landfill, but there's got to be better use of it. Secondly, Layla, you mentioned that the company operating the plant would operate as a private company. Am I right in assuming that it would be similar to the waste reduction unit, in that the company would then pay dividends to the shareholders? Thank you.
Okay, in response then to the first question, so the government resource and waste strategy was updates were originally mooted in around 2017 and have been delayed a number of times, initially as a result of Brexit and then COVID. The latest ratification of the new legislation has been postponed by a further 6 months to autumn for to be brought, I think, to the House of Lords. But we have started to see a few kind of key areas where we think that they'll be looking to target, and one of which is plastics and a plastics tax. What we're expecting from them is to put a demand in for the recycling of the low-grade films, and to sort of unify the types of plastics that producers are allowed to use in different materials, and also targeting a certain percentage of that to be from recycled material. The flexibility that we have in our facility through use of the robotics and the optics is that if those polymers in the plastics change, we can react in a space of minutes. There's very little infrastructure that would need changing within the facility. It can target different materials very, very quickly, which would allow us to then collect and separate those materials also. We have started early engagement with some of the end markets that we're anticipating will accept the materials that we're processing at this facility, and we've been targeting UK-based companies, and the markets for plastics within the UK are very good. We've been talking particularly to a couple of emerging companies who will deal with the low-grade film, and will be able to secure markets for those very, very quickly. In relation to your second question, yes, the company will be operating in a similar sort of model to CSWDC. The gate fee going into the facility is based on the lifetime costs of the facility for the processing and the operating over a 20-year period to set our gate fee. The business case is not predicated on any third-party material coming into the facility, but if we do sell any additional capacity, that would come back to the partners in a form of a dividend.
Okay, thank you so much, Layla.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Mutton. Jenny, are there any other questions?
Yes, so we've got questions from Councillor Bailey, Councillor Matt Nicholas, and I think Andrew Walster wants to comment as well.
Can I just, Chair, may I just add something to Layla's response for John as well, if that's okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. John, as the other comfort we've got within this, and Layla's given a good response on the level of technology in the facility and its ability to respond to changing markets, but as well as the incinerator within our gift as well, we also have the processes that we've got through our wider portfolio of companies at Tom White's as well, where they produce a fuel for Cemex as well. So we have a number of outlets for low grade plastic if we need to, should we need to do that. So I think we're in as good a place as anybody to be able to deal with those changes in future recycling markets.
Thank you very much, Andrew. John, does that lead to any follow-up, or are you still happy with the answer that you got?
No, I'm still happy with the answer. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you very much. I think it was Councillor Bailey next.
That's right.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, can I thank Layla for the good presentation she's made this morning. She's made it very clear, very precise and to the point, and it's not too long-winded. So thank you for that. You've already answered my main question that John asked, so that's great. I appreciate the answer. I just have a small question, if I may. I believe that the local wildlife site that was there has been delisted. If you could confirm that and confirm when that happened, please. Thank you.
I'm not sure, Councillor Bailey. Thank you for that question. I'm not sure, to be perfectly honest, but I can find the answer to that and come back to you if that's okay.
Chair, Andrew Walster has his hand up, so he may be able to respond.
Thanks, Chair, if that's okay. Yes, Roger, it was done during the allocation of the site in the local plan in 2016.
Thank you, Andrew. Do you have any follow-up to that, Councillor Bailey?
No, that's fine. I didn't realise it was so far back, but that's great. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Layla.
Thank you, Roger. Councillor McNicholas, I think, was next.
Thank you, Chair. What an exciting proposal, and an excellent presentation from Layla for us to understand. I note there were some concerns, and I think what would have been helpful for me, because noting that there were presentations or involvement of the local councillors, Bailey and Brown, nevertheless, I mean, we've got Billing and Willenhall adjacent, Lowestoke adjacent, and one of the concerns was actually in relation to traffic management, I suppose, as the best way of dealing with it. If I could have an appreciation of a location map, because I need to understand how traffic management will actually be accommodated. Having said that, this is going back to this exciting proposal. I sincerely hope that we don't do what Coventry is very good at, and that's innovation, and then hiding its light. What are we going to do to tell the world of what we're actually doing here? Because this is innovative, as is usual with Coventry, but we just don't tell anybody. We allow other people to take the credit, other authorities who, like I say, then take the credit, and we've been there years before. So I'd appreciate some comment on that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McNicholas. Thank you, Layla.
Yes. I'd like to give you reassurance that it will be our intention to promote this widely and to be shouting about what we're doing in the exciting project as we go forward. We are in the process of establishing a website that will be used during initially through the construction phase to provide updates to residents and those interested in the project as to what's going up on site, including time-lapse cameras so we can see the build as it's going through and the installation of the equipment. Once the facility is being constructed, we have a viewing platform and a boardroom that can be used as an educational suite so that we can offer educational tours to interested parties, local schools, members, and help in the promotion of recycling in Coventry and also to the partners involved in it. And we will be looking to showcase this project by attending various different industry sorts of roadshows and opportunities for promotion, and providing kind of an outlet to other authorities. We have already attracted quite a lot of attention in this process and have been talking to authorities across the country about opportunities for something similar that may work for them. So it will be our intention to definitely widely promote this, but as a positive attribute to Coventry.
Thank you very much, Layla. Are you happy with that, John?
Superb response. At last, Coventry seems to have learned its lesson and shouting from the rooftops. I would like to have sight of a location map as a local ward councillor, and I'm pretty sure John, as a Binley and Willenhall councillor, would like something too with the proposed management plan, because there will be impacts on wards other than Charlesmore. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. And before moving to recommendations, Councillor Heatherton, this wonderful plan that everyone is so pleased to see. Would you like to make any further comment before we move to recommendation?
I'd like to thank the officers for their in-depth. I'm so sorry, there's a little bit of outside and I'd like to thank the officers. I think this, as John has said, a wonderful opportunity.
Can't hear you, Lynn. Patricia.
Sorry. It's just a wonderful opportunity to make sure that people know exactly what we're doing in the city. We have been talking to highways as well, John. Please be assured that we are looking at all the routes around this area, and to make sure that we look at the traffic management and to make sure that it's good for, not just for motorists, but it needs to be good for pedestrians and for cyclists as well. So please be assured that we are looking at that in detail and to make sure that it works for everybody. We've listened to the local residents who were very vocal, the Whitby residents in particular, and certainly planning. I attended the planning committee and they were very vocal. So we take on board what they say. We are listening, and we will try as much as we can to keep them up to speed, updated, and everything that's happening around the area. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Councillor Heatherton. And thank you, Layla. So, Jenny, would you like to read the recommendation?
Let me just find the right screen. So the recommendation is to consider the content of the note and the content of the presentation, whether anybody wants to add anything else.
Thank you. Is there anyone who'd like to add to that recommendation? No? Are we all in favour of that recommendation then?
Yes, Chair.
Agreed.
Thank you very much, everyone. Certainly an absolutely wonderful project for Coventry. Moving on then to item 5, the Christmas waste collection review. Councillor Heatherton, would you like to start us off again with this one, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. The collection of waste over the Christmas and New Year period, it differs every year around how the bank holidays fall. The introduction of the alternative waste collection service and the extension of the garden and food waste collections in 2017 prompted further considerations as to how to minimise disruption to residents over this period. So just going forward, the waste collection services were suspended over the Christmas week. In addition, the food and garden waste collections were suspended over the 2 weeks before and after Christmas to allow additional resources during the period to ensure that all residents can receive a collection of their green bin on both the week before and after Christmas. So Historically, in all households, they have had a scheduled calendar delivered, and along with that, some clear bags to help for additional recycling material on that period to help them sort of when their bins are full. So it has been a particularly challenging time. I think it's really sad that the focus has been of things that are out of our control, really. The weather is out of our control with snow. COVID is out of our control. Our refuse collections operators have done amazing work all year. And I think that it's those of us that don't use clear bags, I have to say that this year we had a very good service. And normally I get quite a lot of emails, but this year it's been interesting. There was 2 negative emails, and once it hit the headlines and the front page of the Telegraph, it was amazing the number of people who took the time to actually say that isn't been my experience. Looking on social media sites, there are 25% that were really unhappy about the collection of the clear bags, with 75% saying, actually, you know what, it's been good, and so on. So it's been an interesting time and a challenging time, as we all know. I'm going to hand over to Sarah Elliott, who has done, I believe, a really excellent presentation in explaining what happened this Christmas. But just be assured that what we said last year, in around March time last year, I asked for us to look at the service as a whole and to look at whether there are different ways of doing things and how we would go about that. It's not to say we didn't do that. We did start looking at it, but it was taken over by COVID. And I'm sure everybody would agree that COVID had to take a priority and continues to do so. But we are going back to looking at that because, as I've said publicly, is that the public expect a different sort of service. They expect almost a 24-hour service these days, and a lot of things that we provide. So in going forward, I'll hand over to Sarah, where she can go into the detail. But thank you for allowing me to speak, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And just before I invite Sarah to come in, Councillor Heatherton, I'd just like to say that many people have appreciated very much what our officers have done. They've actually gone to the doorstep to shout at a distance thank you to them, because they so much appreciate the work that's been done. So thank you, and thanks to all the team. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Heatherton. So Councillor Heatherton has covered a lot of detail around it, but I'll just put a little bit of extra in there. So as people who've been on Scrutiny Board for a while will know, we come every year to give this review of how things have gone, and as Councillor Heatherton pointed out, this year has been a particularly challenging year. It's always challenging. Since 2017, when we moved to alternate week collections, we had to rethink the way that we collect over the Christmas period, because obviously on a weekly collection it was slightly different. We have the shutdown week that we also have to sort of work around as well. So as you will know, we, as Councillor Heatherton pointed out, we suspend the garden waste and food waste collections for a period before and after Christmas to allow us to utilise additional resource within the service to ensure that everybody in the city gets their green bin collected the week before and the week after Christmas. This year was particularly challenging again because when the garden waste collections restarted, it then snowed, and that caused some further disruption because we did have to suspend garden waste collections for 1 week in order to be able to catch up with the snow day that we had. As we've touched on in previous years, one of the big challenges that we have every year is that the working arrangements over Christmas with our own workforce is voluntary. We have no mandatory requirements on our staff to work over the Christmas period to cover the collection days that are normal non-working days, which means that we do rely on volunteers. Last year, one of the big issues that we had was that we were unable to successfully recruit the number of staff that we needed, and we had problems with agency because we are every year we're fighting with everyone else around the Christmas period for temporary staff. This year, as the non-working day was a bank holiday, the financial incentive for our own staff to come in and work on that day was far greater, and I'm pleased to say that actually we managed to fully man the bank holiday day for the collections for those that were due a collection on Christmas Day, and we were able to put all rounds out and complete them successfully. We have, as Councillor Heatherton has pointed out, we send out calendars to all residents in the lead up to the Christmas period to let them know what's happening. We have, in discussion and considering the different ways that people access information, a decision has been made that this year was the last year that we will be delivering a physical calendar to people. And we will be providing that information through other channels from these years on. What we have done is we have provided an option for residents if they would like to have a physical calendar to do so. And we have a dedicated phone line and an email address where people can request one. Up to date, we've had around 1,000 requests for calendars for the coming Christmas because people are very, very organised, and we will keep monitoring that. In terms of the clear sacks and the calendars, the cost of producing them and delivering them this year was over £75,000. We utilised the Royal Mail this year, following some concerns last year with our normal collection methods. I'm not going to sit here and say it's perfect, but I think that utilising the Royal Mail, though slightly more expensive, has meant that we've had a slightly better delivery of them. With terms of collecting the bags after Christmas, as Councillor Heatherton has pointed out, we've had some challenges this year. Every year we liaise with our trade union colleagues to discuss a suitable collection method for the sacks, because obviously they do have an impact on the capacity within the rounds and the time taken to deliver the rounds. What we usually do, as we did last year, was we would put in additional resource, put an extra person into the vehicles with the crews to enable the bags to get collected as they go along. Unfortunately, this year, due to COVID and the need to protect bubbles and minimise the number of people in the cabs, we were unable to do that. So it was agreed that we would have additional collection crews to go around and get them collected in a timely manner. Unfortunately, just after Christmas, when we were all planned to go, we went into a third lockdown, which resulted in us losing a number of people through the shielding or isolation, which meant that we had to divert any resource that we had just to ensure that the bins were collected. And following from that point, we then utilised Saturdays, we utilised whatever resources we could get hold of to try and get back to collect the bags in a timely manner. And it did mean that we resulted in bags being left on the streets for longer than we liked, and we did receive a number of concerns and complaints from residents where bags were left uncollected for up to 2 weeks in the main, and we're still getting little pockets right now where there are some bags that have been left. We do tend to have this after this where people may have more bags or put them out later, so we will keep monitoring that situation. One of the key things to say as well is that considering the challenge and disruption that we've had this year, hopefully next year will not be the same. We are looking at the collection, the bags as a whole, and consideration for future requirements of whether we actually need bags. And it's a discussion to be had as to whether actually bags is a requirement. There is also work going on corporately around the Christmas shutdown week, which could change things again within waste and change the requirement or need for bags. Just at the bottom of the note, I've done an update on some of the requests that were put forward from the Scrutiny Board last year. One in particular was in relation to the way that complaints and queries that are received via councillors are counted within the number of complaints that we get. And I am aware that a new process has been established so that information and data can be captured. And I believe that has been trialled with a number of councillors and is continuing to be considered further. There are some statistics included in an appendix within the report that just shows this year some of the performance statistics that shows some of the differences and additional challenges that COVID has brought, certainly in the amount of waste that we've been collecting. Councillors may be aware that throughout the COVID pandemic, the amount of waste that we are collecting as a service has increased quite dramatically, alongside more people spending time at home, I think more people doing DIY at home. And we have seen a sort of across the board increases of around sort of 18 to 20% that we're collecting. Christmas was particularly high. We collected in the same period last year over 25% extra waste than we normally would, on top of the challenges that we were experiencing. I've also given some data there on complaints and missed bins, which shows you some comparison across the years. There's a big caveat there on the complaints, which have dropped dramatically, and that is due to the way that complaints have been dealt with during the COVID period via the contact centre, and not necessarily obviously a true reflection of service performance. So I'll just throw that in as a caveat. As you'll see, missed bins numbers, similar lines from last year. So in terms of recommendations, just recommending that the information is noted in consideration of future service requirements, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Just before we take questions, Councillor Heatherton, is there anything that you'd like to add?
I'll be happy to hear the questions and see if I need to respond to anything afterwards. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. If we take questions then, Jenny.
Okay, so we've got questions from Councillor Poydevin, Councillor Bailey and Councillor Mutton.
Thank you. Welcome to the Scrutiny Board, Councillor Poydevin. Would you like to go ahead with your question?
I think you're still on mute, Councillor Poydevin.
Right, thank you, Chair. But before I start, I really do want to say I appreciate the work that our refuse collectors do. But since the pandemic, I believe everyone has been made aware of how dependent we are on each other and how essential certain services are, especially refuse collection. Obviously, the public and members understand the difficulties of sickness and short staffing. However, I and other members continue to be contacted about missed bins, and this is outside the Christmas period as well as the Christmas period. Over Christmas, these complaints increased by email, phone and social media considerably. I don't know if it was specific to our ward, but Woodlands ward, but I certainly received a lot, especially around the communication and the collection of the additional bags. Many were ripped and caused litter. I note in the report about the alternative weekly collections, and clearly there are significant staffing issues over the Christmas period and planning. As an essential service, could the work contracts of this service be looked at again to make it beneficial for staff to work over these periods and be mandatory in contracts? If other public services can do it and deliver, why can't Coventry? I know that Warwick are able to work an efficient and effective system. Can we learn from them? Or would this service be improved if it was outsourced? I would also ask that when we are able to purchase refuge trucks, that we purchase ones that are able to access difficult spaces. And I would ask in future that there's much better improved communication, because then we wouldn't have, members wouldn't have people contacted them so often. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to take that, Sarah?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Chair. I mentioned earlier, Councillor Poydevin, I think I've got three questions there. The first one around so the terms and conditions of our employees and whether or not we can change that or make it more financially viable for them to work. As I said, this year we didn't have an issue with the with staffing numbers during the year that the day that we always have concerns, which is the voluntary day, and that was, as I pointed out, down to the fact that it was more financially beneficial for them to come in, and there is an absolute key link between our workers being willing to come in and be flexible and the amount of money that they are paid. Obviously, Andrew will probably want to come in on this and talk about the wider issues across the council of considering waste collectors, the waste collection service employees, any differently to anybody else in the organisation, and I will let Andrew pick up on that. there was a question in there around the procurement of refuse trucks and whether the challenges that we have in access, and this has been heightened across COVID with more people being at home, is access issues, and it's extremely frustrating. It's frustrating for us and it's frustrating for residents where even when we are running normal services, we're unable to collect the bins because we just can't get into places, and we fully appreciate that. We do have a small number of smaller trucks that we utilize for streets where even in normal times outside of COVID, we know that we might not get in if we didn't. And we do look at the makeup of our fleet, to see what we need to do moving forward. Obviously, the smaller the truck, the less waste it takes, and the less waste it takes, the more rounds we need. So there are a lot of considerations that we have to take in there. So just be assured that we obviously take that into consideration and fully appreciate the additional challenges of small areas when there's more people at home. There was a question there around Warwick, and is there anything that we can learn from Warwick? Well, we do learn from each other. We have sub-regional groups where we all get together and discuss operational challenges and how that can be how we can work together on that. And I'm aware that particularly around sort of the snow, we work together around health and safety, and a lot of the challenges that Coventry have had, other areas have had as well. In terms of the message from Warwick in being able to assure things, that will be because they have different terms and conditions within the contracts with their employees, which I've already touched upon. But yes, the answer to, can we learn? We do learn, we discuss, we work with other authorities. Warwick is an outsourced service. We speak to them. We also speak to others like Nuneaton, North Warwickshire, who are, internals, and we all have similar challenges. But hopefully I've answered your questions.
Thank you. Would you like to come in, Andrew?
If I may, Chair, that would be useful. I think Councillor Poidevin raises a good point, and I think it was picked up earlier by Councillor Heatherton as well, which was the way in which the world is changing and where people demand their services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We can all order a parcel from Amazon and watch the thing almost electronically arrive at the end of the street before the doorbell rings and all the rest of it. I'm not suggesting we should get there on waste in that particular point, but the question of working the week between Christmas and New Year is absolutely a contractual one, and it's a contractual one not just for refuse collection but for the entire workforce and organisation. So that is something that is being considered this year corporately through negotiations and conversations with trade unions across the whole of the organisation, because refuse isn't the only service that needs to work. It is probably the only service that needs to put out a full service between Christmas and New Year. You can rely on skeleton services elsewhere. I think the Warwick conversation is an interesting one. They do not, an outsourced service does not have the pay comparators that you will have within a local authority and the equal pay comparators that you have. And every outsourced service that I'm aware of and that Sarah is aware of pay a significant financial bonus to work the week between Christmas and New Year. That is not an option open to us as a local authority without renegotiating the single status contract that exists between ourselves and our workforce. And as I say, that is something we are looking at through Sue Newing's team this year, and Sarah alluded to that earlier on.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Have you a further question, Councillor Poidevin, before I bring anyone else in?
I just wanted to say thank you that you are considering looking at the terms and conditions and of other services. I just wanted to make the point, having worked for the police for a number of years, we were always able through pay to get relevant staffing in, and it does appear to me that whatever is essential should be covered. But that's it. I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Poidevin.
Chair, sorry, Chair, the leader's got his hand up as well. I don't know if he wanted to make any comments.
Thank you. George, would you like to come in? Councillor Duggins?
I'm falling for the same thing that everybody else seems to do. So thank you, Lyndon, and thank you for the presentation. I mean, there are a number of things there from what Julia has said. Can I say this is not good enough to say thank you, but no thank you. What we have to do is be unequivocal about the contribution that our colleagues have made across the council to keep this city going. There's no ands, ifs or buts about that. And very clearly, I'd like to ask Councillor Podivin to contemplate, not answer the question now, but contemplate what it would have been like in this city without a refuge service which is totally dedicated to delivering for the people of this city. And Councillor Bigham started off by saying, and it's absolutely true, that people were coming out and thanking the refuge collectors for what they were doing. As you've heard in the presentation, there was a greater tonnage of refuse that was collected. So I think we shouldn't be thank you, but I think we should be thank you for stop. In respect to outsourcing, Councillor Podivin, I can absolutely tell you that this administration will not even consider it. So you can put that one back in the box. And if there's any likelihood of any headlines you're looking to get or would get, the answer is no. We have had considerable experience of outsourcing in this city council over a period of time. And I think ICT is a great example where when John was leader and I was deputy leader, one of the first things we did was to bring it back into house and save £5 million and had a far better service as a result of that. And it's something that we could control. Privatisation and outsourcing, colleagues, is a bit of an old hat, because we know that whatever happens is a top slicing of the service budget for profit. So we don't get the value that we should get. And so that is not going to happen. And I'm quite surprised anybody would raise outsourcing after the experience of test, track, trace, isolate and support, and how inadequate that is. And again, in respect to the police service, a completely different kind of service. You know, it's a command service, ours is not. And over a period of time, what we've got to do is we've got to, as Andrew has said, negotiate. And I've been involved in 2017 in heading off an industrial relations dispute, potentially over a Christmas arrangement. In fact, I was on one of my few days annual leaves, and I had to come back from out the city to meet with senior trade union representatives who faced me with the fact that, you know, there was great discontent. And I said, you know, this isn't what was agreed. What was portrayed wasn't agreed. So, Chair, thank you for allowing me to come in. I may want to come in again, but I wasn't anticipating. I was anticipating to wait my turn, but as Jenny very kindly sort of reminded you that I was here, Councillor Bigham, and Linda, thank you ever so much. And as I say, it'd be interesting to see what other comments are, but I do think the message should be from a scrutiny board today. Yes, we will look at, and I will be involved in looking at how we deliver on the Christmas collection this year, and I'll be working with Cabinet colleagues in respect to that. But I think this is an opportunity, a real opportunity, for the scrutiny board to say to our employees generally and our refuge services, who's just gone by the house, by the way. So my blue bin's been picked up. You can, you know, I get a wonderful service here. I don't know what it is, but we should be saying thank you, a big thank you, and not being mealy-mouthed about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George. Jenny, who had the next question?
Councillor Bailey's got the next question, and then John Mutton.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bailey, Roger.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
I'm getting IT problems. It's not new, is it? I'm not going to duplicate anything that's already been said. And I especially liked Andrew's extra information. That was really helpful. Can I also put on record, thank you to Sarah and the team for the quick responses I've had on many occasions over the Christmas period. My biggest problem I encountered was in the Whitley area, where many of the cleared bags hadn't been cleared on time, and we understand why. and in one case, green bins hadn't been emptied on time as well. But I have to say that every time we've emailed Sarah and the team, always got an instant response. In actual fact, nearly every time on the same day, or even within a couple of hours. So I wanted to thank her for that. I wanted to make it a public record as well. I note her comments as regard clear bins, clear bags, and that they'll be looking at whether they actually need them or not. So I welcome that, because I clearly think we need to have a look at that. And I will actually say something that George has actually said as well, if I don't mind, if he doesn't mind. I'd like to place on record thank you to all the people who actually clear the bins, because they clearly work very hard and very challenging conditions. And I think it's only right we put that on record as well. Not a question, Sarah, but I welcome what you said about looking again at the clear bags and whether we actually need the clear bags at all, because maybe it's adding to your challenges, and I'm not sure you really need to do that over the Christmas period. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Roger. Do you need to come back in on that, Sarah, or should we go straight to Councillor Mutton's question?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Mutton.
Thank you, Linda. Can I start by saying I'm absolutely delighted to hear the Leader of the Council reaffirm that we will not be privatising the refuse collection. It would be an unmitigated disaster, you know, if we did. And it's a good job I had the camera off, because I'm sure my mouth was wide open listening to Julia Lepoidovan. On one hand, praising the guys for the work that they did, and then on the next hand, talking about externalisation. You know, you can't have it both ways. Some of us can remember the absolutely awful service provided to the people of Coventry in the Christmas 2009-2010, when the Conservative administration let the people of this city down so badly, and things were changed from then onwards. I did have to smile slightly when Patricia said she'd only received 2 emails of complaint. They must have been my 2, because I did complain. And I didn't complain about the green-lidded bins being emptied. I thought that was perfection. I didn't complain about the blue-lidded bins being emptied, because that worked superbly as well. It was the clear bags from several aspects. First of all, myself included, I didn't get any clear bags delivered until New Year. And then I had a bag with 2 in come one day, and lo and behold, a bag with 2 in the next day. But other people who live near me didn't get any at all. I think it was helpful having the extra collection of green-lidded bins, but I'm not so certain that's a priority now. I know a lot of people are like me. My green-lidded bin been collected this morning, spot on, but it was only half full. My blue-lidded bin is always full to overflowing every fortnight. And at Christmas, with the wrappings and the boxes and all the other stuff, I think there's more demand to have an extra collection of the blue-lidded bin and perhaps one less for the green-lidded. But that might just be my household. Although looking at the bins, you can see which ones are bursting at the seams. I was shocked to read that the cost of the production of the clear bags and the delivery was £75,000. The Leader of the Council will clearly remember when the bin men used to deliver them themselves. Whilst we couldn't pay bonuses because of single status, an extra payment was made for extra duties undertaken, which cost £15,000. Okay, that's 10 years ago, but it was £15,000. I believe that we need to look at the most appropriate way, and there is a need for bags at Christmas for recycling. I could not have, coped with all my recycling, but I would ask the cabinet member to look again at both the distribution, and the collection. And I take on board the comments about COVID and the weather and various other things. But in my ward, the clear bags are out for the best part of 2 weeks in some areas. I even had to arrange for a team to go out to St James Lane because a lot of the bags there had been ripped apart by animals and there was litter up and down St James Lane. And I have to say that team did a superb job as well. So I think there are lessons to be learned, particularly the cost this year, bearing in mind, we're not likely to be in a position in a year's time when it comes to producing a budget of being able to easily balance the books. So I think that a couple of things we can learn lessons from, and I'm trying not to be too negative about the clear bags, although I don't think that was anywhere near as good as the emptying of the bins. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you very much, John. Would you like to respond to that, Sarah?
Yeah, just one caveat to say on the £75,000, Chair, that 50,000 of that was actually related to producing and delivering the calendars, which obviously we will be saving next year. Just to clarify that, and to thank Councillor Mutton and say we'll take all of those forward when we're making our considerations for next year's collections.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions, Jenny?
Yes, we've got a question from Councillor Abbott and a question from Councillor Heaven.
Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Chair. And again, it's more of a comment. I think generally the collections over Christmas ran smoothly. We had a number of issues in Wykin around the clear plastic bags, which has already been covered. I think one of the key things around this is how we communicate out to residents. And we've seen this as well in the past couple of weeks with the suspension of the brown lidded bins as well. And I think we need to make sure that we're getting communications out to residents, not just using online methods. I don't think there's necessarily an easy solution to this, but there are a number of families across the city who don't have good access to internet, who wouldn't consider looking at the council website for information about whether bins are being collected or not. So I think we just need to give some thought as to how we communicate when we're experiencing challenges with collections, because I think generally people are quite understanding, and if we know we're going to miss a collection and we can plan for it, we know to leave our bins out the next day. But there's nothing more frustrating than not knowing when your bin's actually going to get collected. But I'd also like to pass on thanks to the team. Sarah's aware of an issue I've been dealing with this week. And again, as testament to the flexibility of the crews, they've been out this morning and cleared the issue that had built up in one particular area in the ward. So I'd like to say a huge thank you for that. Again, for the teams being able to react flexibly and quickly where there's been an issue, to be able to resolve it really quickly. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Faye. Shall we move directly to Councillor Heaven's question, since Councillor Abbott said that was more of a statement than a question?
Chair,
so
Andrew Wolster has got his hand up. I don't know whether he wanted to come in on for a comment on that.
Oh, thank you, Jenny. Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. I know that Faye said that was a comment, and I just wanted to give us some reassurance. The communication has been even more difficult this year, because where people like the paper and the radio would pick stuff up from us through the usual channels, they're not necessarily picking up as much on the day-to-day stuff that we have in there. And we'll work with the communications team and the people who help us with that from the from both the paper and the local democracy reporting service, to see if we can get those stuff that goes out in tweets and on social media out into the more traditional media, shall I say, Faye, to get to the people who don't necessarily follow the social media stuff.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Councillor Heaven?
Thank you, Chair. Actually, one of my questions was related to communication, which Andrew also answered that, so we can improve our communication. I mean, without no doubt, you know, what I echo what the leader said in terms of thanking the workmen and what they do. My specific question is, excuse me if I'm not aware of this in the past, but with the period that obviously this time it worked out that we had the bank holiday and there was no shortage of staff on the day because they were able to get paid more, so they did come to work. But just looking at for future, you mentioned the possibility of having agency workers, but at that period sometimes is so many people go for them because there's shortage. So is it something that we can look in advance, securing agency workers for that period that we may need to help for the few days? Is that something that to look into? And other than that, I just want to thank actually Sarah Elliott, who she's been quite prompt in responding. I did receive more than 2 complaints, and mainly the main complaints that we received was related to the clear bags and not having the communication of what they could do with it, and it was left for 2 weeks. That's the one that I think has been really highlighted. It was the clear bags. If we can find a way for following years how we can tackle that, A, our communication, 2, if we can get agency staff to support it, apart from other things that you are already doing in looking at the contractual contracts that you have. So that's really the question that I wanted to ask about agency workers on that period. What's the possibility of having them on board?
Thank you very much, Councillor Heaven. Sarah, would you like to take that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Heaven. With regards to agency staff, in a normal year, in the lead up to Christmas, we would carry out a large recruitment process via the agencies to enable us to get staff in, which involves full training and to ensure that we've got staff all over the Christmas period. It's been slightly different for this year, last year, because due to COVID, we've had a requirement to have extra agency people in all year. So this year we didn't need to do that big recruitment because they were already here, and that did help us this year as well, with the fact that we were able to get all of the rounds out, as I say. So in a normal year, yes, absolutely, that is what we do. But as I say, it's been a slightly strange year this year, which has meant that we haven't had to fight for people as we usually are fighting with Royal Mail and Amazon and all the extra people who are recruiting over Christmas, because we've actually maintained them for the majority of the year to help us with the challenges that we've had due to COVID.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Are you happy with that answer, Councillor Heaven?
Yes, Chair. So I'm trying to understand it. So if we didn't have a staffing issue, then we had the delay on the picking up of the clear bags too. So what was the main issue that occurred? Because I was under the impression that it was mainly because of the staffing issue that we experienced this delay.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, just to confirm. So yes, last year the big challenge that we had was we were unable to secure enough agency staff to cover the voluntary working day, and that was our major issue last year. This year that hasn't been our issue. The issue this year was that we had lots and lots of staff, and then unfortunately we went into a lockdown, and we do have with such a large workforce, we do have quite a number of staff who are critically vulnerable into COVID, and so with the lockdowns comes the advice from the government and from the NHS for people who have to isolate. So with the lockdown, which we weren't expecting, as I say, we planned for additional bag crews. That was the resource that we had, but unfortunately, because we did lose people, the extremely clinically vulnerable within our workforce, it meant that we had to make a choice, and the choice we made was to ensure that the bins got collected, which meant that we were unable to collect the bags in the way that we would have liked, which was what caused all of the issues. So it's not necessarily, it was a number of things coming together that created the problem with the bags. It wasn't any one thing that we could have predicted. So that hopefully, Councillor, that I can explain that.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Councillor Heaven, does that
Thank you
answer
very-
your question now?
Yes, so what would you recommend if going forward in terms of your experience of what you had next year without, having COVID or not having COVID?
Andrew's hand just popped up, so I
yes.
didn't know whether he wanted to answer that one.
Yes, would you like to answer that one, Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. If I can, and I'm sorry to cut across the cabinet member and the leader, who I know have got their hands up as well. I think it's very difficult, Councillor Heaven, to know what will happen from a COVID point of view. I mean, we all hope that actually we'll be back to some form of normality by the end of the summer, and therefore bringing in the wider review of whether or not we continue with plastic bags or not over the Christmas period plays hugely into that. Equally, if we bring in the look at the way that we do the extra collections over Christmas as well, and consider the point that Councillor Mutton raised as well about potentially an additional blue collection rather than one of the additional green collections. Those are things that we need to consider. As Sarah said, normally we would do a big recruitment drive just before Christmas, and you are in a very competitive market for people at that point. The real thing that would really help us is the point that Councillor Duggins made and I touched on earlier, which is if we are able to negotiate a package that means that the workforce will be able to come into work between Christmas and New Year, we then don't have a catch-up period afterwards, and that's down for negotiation and that work this year.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Councillor Duggins, was it touching this subject?
It was,
Yeah.
but Linda, would you be so kind as to invite Pat in first? And if she doesn't cover what I would want to cover, then I'll dip out.
Thank you, George. Councillor Heatherton.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, I just sort of feel a little bit frustrated here. This has been an exceptional year, absolutely exceptional. You can make all the plans in the world, you can make arrangements for things to happen, and we all know that things don't go according to plan. And as I say, at times like this, my frustration is great because of the service we've had all year, when the challenges that have been faced, the way that our crews have stepped up, and it's lost in this. It gets lost with this because in actual fact, all that appreciation is lost. A lot of the things that I'm hearing today is down to sometimes we give calendars. That is a way of saying to people, this is when your bin should go out. When they don't do that, and Julia, I want to pick up on something you said, because in Woodlands Ward in particular, the areas of that were an issue, I walk past every day with my little dog, as you've heard already this morning. I walk past there and I see for myself what the issues are. I keep going back every day. And one of the things that I've noticed is that sometimes people haven't looked at their calendar, they put the wrong bins out. They haven't heard the communication that have gone out to say, especially when the snow, is that there won't be any brown bin collections, but they're still left out there for 2 weeks. When it was the blue bin collection, they'd still put out their green bins out, the general waste collection. And so you had a cluster. At times you had a cluster of bins there. And because people sometimes don't refer to our site, they don't look at the calendar, and so that's why we're stopping the calendar. We have this situation where it looks an unearthly mess. And, I've had the MP on to me about a particular area just down the road from where I live, and I've gone out every day and I knew exactly what they'd done, which was they had ignored what was said, that this was going to be a blue bin only collection. But all of the green bins were out there and still some of the brown bins were there. And then I walked past again because the collection day is on Tuesday, the same as mine. And I saw that now it is clear. It is clear. And so I take note of that, where I can go out and see for myself what the issues are. And also, let me just say that the crews in the vehicles, they're able to actually film. They've got their iPads, they can show us why they can't get through and so on. So when we are saying there's a problem, and in particular, in one of the lanes that I know was an issue, is that you can't get past. It's not the way the residents have parked, it's their visitors have parked for the lorries to get up. So I've taken the trouble to go out, Julia, I can assure you, on those particular hotspots. I'm not referring to the bag collection here, although obviously I note that when I'm out there. But when they're referring to the bin collection, it's really important for me to see what the problem is, because as I've said, my experience has been positive and others are telling me theirs is positive as well. So I think this is, you know, it doesn't matter how much information we can give people. Sometimes the weather will sort of take over. It was only with the snow that particular day. The COVID thing, we still would have got round with the bin collections had we not had snow. And so, you know, then we have to make sure that we do the catch up, and it's a whole area, a huge area of the city that was affected by that. But I just think that we need to sort of think that these are exceptional times. They really are exceptional time. We've already said that we are looking and talking, and we would have started those talks last year, because it is something that I felt very strongly about after last Christmas collection, and so let's have a look at it. I'm somebody who worked 17 Christmases on the trot, working in the NHS on the wards before I got a Christmas off, and that was something that you take for granted. You know, that's part of when you come into a service, that's what you have to do. So there is a lot of people there that are thinking, well, if I have to work, why don't others? So this is why we are having these talks, and that is something that because people are at home, they're clearing out. There's far more waste coming out, as Sarah's already said. So we do need to look, as John has already said as well, looking at the blue bins, because the blue bins are the ones that get filled much quicker. And we do need to sort of look at it as a whole, and to make sure that if we can look at the service, alter the service, and that does not mean ever outsourcing, keep our guys in-house and make sure that actually they work with us and they're happy to do so with the terms and conditions moving forward. So I would ask you please to consider that this is not a case of what do you consider this, do you consider it has been exceptional. Nobody knows as much as ourselves who are really involved just how close we came to sometimes not even having anything going out there, and that is something that we just get on with it. And we don't actually broadcast how difficult it's become when it looked as if we couldn't get people to actually come out. So it's just sharing that with people, because it's been a very, very challenging time. And the fact is that I can't thank these crews enough for what they've done. I can't thank Sarah and the team enough, because against all odds, we have managed to still get it out. And that's something I feel very strongly about. So please, just bear with us, because we are looking at making a difference for next year. If the talks go ahead and they are successful, we won't be in this position, so we don't need to talk about bags and calendars. So thank you, Chair, for that opportunity.
Thank you very much. Councillor Duggins? Councillor Duggins, I think you're muted.
Oh crumbs! I'm gonna keep them muted. You can hear what's going on in the house, and you can hear the dustbin lorries coming past me and all that kind of thing. I'll keep the window open so that people can hear that. So yeah, can I just say, allow others to come in first. I might come in later. I'll reserve the right if you don't mind. I think Councillor Heatherton's covered much of what I would say. I might come back.
Thank you very much. Councillor Heaven, are you satisfied now? Councillor Heaven, are you muted?
Yes, no, thank you, Chair. No, I did raise the point, and thank you to Sarah for answering the question. And I just want to thank you for her communication to us councillors, because she did communicate to us, and we were able to contact any complaints that we were getting to say, you know, there's going to be a delay. So we would, you know, that was one part that we would need to give credit to Sarah and her team. And this is just, you know, I think it's just not, you know, this is why we're in a scrutiny board. Otherwise we shouldn't have scrutiny boards at all. I think Councillor Heatherton should know this is the reason why we just want to make things better. But, you know, no one asking for 100% perfection. We understand it. You know, the crew are doing their best, and, you know, we know we're in a challenging times. And we try to see what happens if we were again in challenging times. So it's just really a matter of being aware and being able to communicate and just to improve for better. But I don't think residents are unreasonable. They understand, they appreciate that it's challenging times for everybody. And once it's rectified, I think it is fine. So I just think we need to acknowledge that even residents do understand that. It's just they need to be communicated.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heaven. Jenny, are there any other questions?
Yes, Councillor Poidovan has her hand up.
Councillor Poidovan. Are you muted, Julia?
I just wanted to make a suggestion. I mean, I did get some communication that I was able to get out, and this is following what Pat has just said. Would it be possible, when there are going to be issues, for us to be communicated prior so that we can put it onto local Facebook sites and social media? That might then enable people to take their bins in if they know that it's going to be a couple of days or something before you know, they're collected. You know, and that could be a reminder of which bins are being picked up when. If we could get that message out, I mean, we've got residents associations, there are a number of Facebook sites. It just seems it would be a good way of communicating and stopping the complaints. Just a thought.
Thank you. I see Andrew Worcester's hand. Do you want to respond to that, Andrew?
If I can, Chair, there's just a couple of bits of information I'd like to just make members aware of and remind them. So through the My Account system with the City Council and through the recycling app and all the rest of it, there are regular communications and reminders go out through that. And we do use that process as well when we, if and when we have a problem. And we will also email and elected members when we have a problem to let them know. The issue with pulling bins in when we have a problem is that actually then you can't pull a bin in that's been put into somebody's, you can't empty a bin that's been put into somebody's back garden. And actually our concentration and effort then is actually clearing the city up and as back as quick as we possibly can. So if we take the snow issue last week or the week before, we weren't able to send crews out for the quite right reasons on the Tuesday, but we suspended the garden waste for the rest of the week and it was all cleared back by the Saturday to make sure, and that was possible because people from the Tuesday were able to leave their bins out. I know it's difficult, I know it's unsightly, but it means we get cleared back as quickly as possible. But I'd be happy to get a separate note round to maybe go with the minutes, Chair, if that helps, with the communication channels that are already open so that ward members can then look out for those to repeat on local Facebook sites and those sorts of things if they need to.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Councillor Duggins. Are you on mute, George?
Here we go again. No, Linda, thank you very much. And I think all the points have been covered. I think all of the challenges that have been laid before us this morning have been covered. This is the point of scrutiny, so that it can, effectively put forward some suggestions about how things are working. Scrutiny clearly is there to evaluate the outcome of policy that is put forward by the council, and that has happened this morning. But colleagues, I would just want to reiterate the central message, and that is very clear, that as far as I think, and I hope the Scrutiny Board will concur with this, that the refuge collectors, as well as our own staff generally, have performed heroically during the near 11 months of this lockdown restrictions pandemic. And very clearly, I am not, as long as I'm leader, and I think colleagues will agree with this, going to reward hard-working colleagues by threatening to outsource them when they are clearly delivering for the people of this city. That is simply not the way you reward people. You don't reward them by even making the suggestion, colleagues.
Absolutely.
However much that may be part and parcel of what Scrutiny might want to do. But colleagues, I think it's been very worthwhile this morning. As I say, we will be sitting down and I will be involved with the review that Councillor Heatherton will lead. As I say, I think one of the most difficult things you can do is get the refuge service right at Christmas. But I would say, and I do agree with Councillor heaven on this, that, you know, it cannot be 100%, no matter how much we would want that. But that is not through the lack of effort on anybody's behalf. So thank you very much, Councillor Bigham, for your kindness in allowing me to come in the second time and indulging me, you know, as the cabinet member who has responsibility for scrutiny.
Thank you very much. I see no other hands, Jenny. Is that right?
There aren't any other hands up, you're right.
Thank you. Councillor Heatherton, before we move to recommendations, would you like to come back in?
No, I think, thank you, Chair. It's just to say I feel so passionately about the service and trying to get it right. I think you know that. And, you know, we do try to meet the needs of the residents in our city. So, yes, sometimes it's flawed, but believe me, I can't tell you how much we try to get it right. So thank you for your indulgence today on this, and thank you for people understanding how difficult it's been. And yes, I put the recommendations, obviously the recommendations to you, and hope that you'll support. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before you read the recommendations, Jenny, if it just could be formally recorded, the appreciation, the fact that we're grateful to employees and glad of the work that they do. It's essential to us and they do it very well. Thank you. Can I have the recommendations, please, Jenny?
Yep, so the recommendations in the report are that the Scrutiny Board note the information in consideration of future service requirements, and then if there's anything else that the board would like to add to that.
Does anyone on the board have further recommendations that they would like to make?
Only, Chair, the comments I made earlier about the reviews or reviewing how we could improve the service.
Thank you very much. Can you put that in a form of words, please, Jenny?
I will do. I'm not sure if I can do it off the top of my head now, but I will be able to do that and put it in a briefing note to the cabinet member.
Thank you. Councillor Heaven.
Chair, could we have a review on this in 6 months' time? So we won't wait till next year, we'll have the same situation, just to get an update after the review that the chair will be having, the leader, in regards to the conversation of the contracts. Can we have a meeting again in 6 months' time or whenever it's needed, but way before Christmas period?
Possible, Jenny, and is the rest of the board in favour of that?
We can add that to the work programme for 6 months, that's fine.
Just to find out how is things changing to going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Heaven.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So 6 months' time then, Jenny?
Yeah, that's fine. I can put that on the work programme.
Or perhaps, Chair, if it's helpful, rather than put a time limit on, we could say following the review.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yep, that's fine.
Thank you. Any other recommendations, or are we happy now that those recommendations be moved?
Yeah, happy.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yes.
Thank you very much then. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sarah. So moving on then to item 6, city clean-up for City of Culture. And Councillor Heatherton, would you like to start us off on that item, please?
Thank you, Chair. Again, this is something I feel really passionately about, because having been out with the crews and seeing what's involved here, it is absolutely exceptional. So, look, we agreed that we would target skip collections in and around the fly tipping hotspots, and we would look at misuse bins across the city, a complete emptying service prior to the Clean Street operation. We greatly enhanced the Clean Streets neighbourhood by cleaning and getting rid of the fly tipping removal. We've got a dedicated enforcement personnel to follow up on the cleaning operation, and the traffic management to clean and clear the main trunk roads, as well as the work on arterial routes, and just full-time sort of clean streets. And the fact that I get very excited about these things, I know it's sad, but when you go out and you see the difference, and in particular I hope that there's a little clip we can show people, is that it isn't just the normal sort of just, you know, getting rid of a bit of rubbish here. It's the leaves that block the drains. We have a machine now that when we've got cars in the way on the curbside and we've not been able to clean in the past, there is a machine that actually can get in and out and can do the work. So they are cleaning up, they are making sure that all the gullies are free, and they are even along where sometimes on the frontages where there's little walls and the moss is growing up, you'll see that they've cleaned that. And so the whole area, the before and after pictures are just absolutely wonderful. And yes, I may be a bit sad at getting excited about these things, but my goodness, it's the difference that makes us residents feel. They come out of their houses and they're asking what we're doing, and they're seeing the difference, and it's having a pride. It's about their environment when they step outside their front door. So this is a wonderful opportunity for a big clean, and that's what we're doing. So we're going across areas in the city, different wards in the city, and I think if there is that little video, it shows you Westminster Road, and there is a before and after. So I don't know if Sarah wants to come in and talk some more on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heatherton. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Heatherton. Yeah, so I have a brief presentation, and we do have a video, Councillor Heatherton, which I believe Andrew is going to play at the end of the presentation because I wasn't clever enough to get it in the presentation. So just very quickly.
I'm not suggesting I am. It could be a disaster at the end, but we'll try.
We're going to give it our very best shot. Yeah, so just what we're going to be doing today, and you bear with me because this is new technology for me as well, is a little bit about the Clough Clean Streets project, which Councillor Heatherton has just touched upon. So today we'll be covering how this has come about in the City of Culture Readiness, a little bit of an introduction of the teams and the different work that they're going to be doing. I'll cover a little bit for you on how the project is enabling us to do a project within our bulky waste collection service, and then just what we're hoping is going to be the ongoing legacy for the work that we're doing going forward. So as I mentioned, the funding that has come to allow us to be able to carry out these projects has come off the back of the City of Culture Readiness. There was £2.1 million allocated for a citywide cleaning programme to, I think the term that was used was spruce up Coventry ahead of the City of Culture. Obviously, COVID has meant that the beginning of the project was anticipated to start much earlier, and obviously COVID has caused some delays. Resources that were at the beginning in the first lockdown were obviously redeployed to maintain crucial frontline services, which has had an impact on us starting the project. But as Councillor Heatherton pointed out, we are now actually out to go, and this is the video will expand on this, but it was, as Councillor Heatherton mentioned, launched in Westminster following actual complaints that came through from Councillor Akhtar and the residents that lived in Westminster, and it gave Councillor Heatherton an opportunity to meet the team, who are made up of both operational and educational staff. It's not just about cleaning, it's about going out and talking to residents. And Westminster Road, these are the pictures that were actually forwarded to us from residents in their complaints around what was happening in their street, which included general fly tipping, contaminated bins, and I will just make a caveat before I show you the next picture, which is going to make it look wonderful. This is not Westminster Road. Because when I did this presentation, Westminster Road hadn't been completed, so I didn't have before and afters. But this is an example of another road that have very similar problems to that were going on in Westminster that we've done, and it shows the sort of differences that you can accept. As Councillor Heather pointed out, we're not just going in and emptying bins. We will empty bins, we will remove bins, particularly ones that are contaminated and continually not emptied. We, as she mentioned, we dig out those channels. Very, very difficult in streets where there's always parked cars for the normal cleansing teams to get in and clean those channels. We're digging out the channels. The machine that Councillor Heatherton referred to is called the Glutton, and it's like a big industrial hoover that allows us to get in, but it is a hoover, so you can get into small spaces. We're talking to residents about the issues that we've got. We sticker bins, we remind people what they can do. We're sweeping pavements. What this one shows as well is how nice a street can look. A lot of these streets can't put their bins away because they have nowhere to put them, so they are always on the streets, and it actually shows what a difference it makes when they're just put back tidily. And one of the other things that we can do, as I say, is we're talking to residents and who can raise concerns for us, or if we're finding issues that we need to escalate onto other areas of the council, you know, blocked drains, all those kind of things, we could do that at the same time as well. We also, wrong button, now have a flyer, a leaflet, whatever you want to call it, that we can put through the doors of the streets, or we will be, because they literally only arrived yesterday when we're finished. And what we're doing there is we're advising residents of the work that's being undertaken, and key to it is we're asking for their help to maintain it. So the leaflet contains details on how they can report fly tipping, how they can book a bulky waste collection, you know, get a booking to the tip if they want, and also provides details for people who want to get involved in their own cleanups, because we can provide equipment and collection of waste if that's something that they want to do. So other things that we're able to do, we have set up a bespoke email address for councillors, because alongside scheduled work, now our scheduled work is in areas where we know we have issues. We have hotspot roads, and we have scheduled work throughout the week where we will go into those streets where we know we have continual issues. But alongside that, we have resource within the team to go to other areas, and we have set up a bespoke email address for councillors to send details of any specific areas that they would like us to go to. We have skips available that we can bring in as well, and we go into the areas where we go and do a sort of a pre-examination before we go in to see what resource is required, and we do have availability through this project to bring skips into areas if it's felt that it would be useful. One of the other things that the team will be picking up is, you may or may not be aware, but during COVID, the work that the probation teams used to do for us in helping us to clear alleyways has not been possible. And they can't do that. They can't do that during COVID. So the Cov Clean Streets team are hoping to be able to pick up some of the alleyway clearances that have not been getting done because the probation service are unable to do it. There is another team working alongside another Cov Clean Streets team who are out, and they're sort of up to the lead of the City of Culture, will be out doing the deep cleanse of arterial routes and main roads around the city. So you can see there we've got roads such as the A444 and the A45, which are very difficult to cleanse and very expensive to cleanse, where we require lane closures or traffic management. As an example, to clean the A444 fully can take around about a week, and traffic management, the costs of traffic management is around about £1,000 a day. So you can see it's not an easy job to do. So the project and the funding through the project is allowing for a more deeper cleanse of arterial routes and main roads. Equally there we can see Foleshill Road. Now Foleshill Road has cleansing teams in every day to keep that street clean, but they're limited to what they can do, and what this team will be able to do is a deep cleanse within these areas, the sorts of things that the normal street cleansing staff wouldn't normally be doing, removing moss from signs, you know, detritus in the that they find, graffiti, just cleaning signs. So this kind of thing that wouldn't normally get done within the normal day. And there was a schedule to include key city centre areas, routes and hotspots across the city. Another side to the team is neighbourhood enforcement. There are more officers that have been recruited through the project. So there's more officers out on the streets. They are out there, they're monitoring and recording problems. They're linking in with the other teams who are in some of the areas that they experience problems, and they can escalate and enforce where required. Obviously, we want to educate first, but enforcement sometimes, unfortunately, becomes necessary. Another sort of power that this team have is that if residents are refusing to clear up some of the work, they can actually carry out the work on their behalf within a certain timescale and bill residents for work where there are continuing problems. Final thing to cover on there is that the funding that has been made available through this project is allowing us to provide half price bulky waste collection. So anybody who books a bulky waste collection between the 1st of February and the 30th of April will get it at half price, and that the details of that are included on the leaflet that we've got, and it shows there the different prices that means we will get. You're probably aware, councillors, that our bulky waste collection service is carried out by Emmaus, who are a homeless charity who are based in Coventry. They are putting in extra resource to allow us to bring this offer out for our residents, and this is a really key thing, because this is allowing us, hopefully by making it cheaper, it will be more accessible, more people will use it, and it will be really useful in us being able to see whether actually if more people use it, it has any effect on some of the other issues that we experience, such as fly tipping. And as we've mentioned earlier, with a huge increase in waste that we're seeing because of COVID, it will also help residents out who have more waste than they would normally have. My final slide, as I touched on earlier, is about the legacy. Although residents may not always realise what their role is in the City of Culture, and actually this project is about providing some momentum and opportunity due to the funding to get out to residents so that they can see some benefit as well in the lead up to the City of Culture. We want to enhance and improve the pride of those people who live in and love Coventry in the lead up to and beyond the City of Culture, and that is the key thing here. We want to be able to see if by doing things differently that improves, and that can help to with a lasting legacy, learning as we move forward to understand if we can if we need to do things differently in the future, or make different budget decisions based on doing things a little bit differently. Okay, thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Are we having that video clip before the questions, or is that right at the end?
Go for it, Andrew.
I can try if that. So hopefully you should see a picture of Patricia.
Yes.
And you may also be able to hear what's being said.
No.
I don't think we can hear.
So I'll just talk you through. So this is some of the work that we are doing within particular areas, and there is the machine that Sarah has spoken about. And this is in addition to then providing skips and things for residents if they require them to get rid of some of their bulky material as well. But basically to try and actually improve where people are living and clearing up ready beforehand and sorting out any particular issues with contaminated bins, etc. I'll just let the video finish and then we'll go through some additional points if we need to. That finished just on time. The other thing, if I can, Chair, while I'm here, which we've had late on, which may be useful as well to add to the presentation, is the that one, I think. I was going to give you, no, that's the wrong one. My apologies. I will see if I can find it, but I have the map of the arterial route that we are proposing to clean as well. The work on that will start next week and what have you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And Councillor Heatherton, would you like to come in again before we move to questions?
Yeah, I think, Chair, thank you. It's the importance, isn't it? The importance of when people step out the front door and they look around their environment, and as I say, the difference it makes when they see it so clean, the bin's emptied, the litter's gone, everything is really, really tidy, and that makes a difference to how they feel, and we're very aware of that. So this is really exciting in taking it forward. I hope that the board members actually feel the same, because all of us at times know that when we get complaints from residents, it's very much about their local. It's what happens to them on a daily basis and they come out their front door. So it's trying to make a difference, trying to get them on board with us so that in the future they'll work with us, and community groups as well. So thank you. I hope that sort of explained everything that we're doing right now. And again, you know, we've got brilliant crews out there doing this work and loving what they're doing, because they love it when they see the difference too. So thank you for that, Chair. Thank you.
Wonderful. I want one of those machines for Christmas. So Andrew, we see the arterial routes.
If I
do you
can
want
just
to say anything before I bring John in?
Please, if I can, Chair. Sorry, John.
Yeah.
Just the areas in blue are the areas we're concentrating on. There are a number of areas that I'll just members will be well aware of, because they create a lot of email traffic from residents. So the A444 between the Rico roundabout and junction 3 of the M6 is in Nuneaton and Bedworth's land, and Nuneaton and Bedworth have already agreed to cleanse that for us and tidy that area up prior to City of Culture. We're in similar negotiations with Rugby around the Eastern Bypass and the A46. If we don't get anywhere, we will just go and do that ourselves. And again, around the A46 coming up to Festival Island, and the area, the actual part of the A46 sits within Warwick District's responsibility. And again, we're having similar conversations with them. I'll take that off the screen, Chair.
You've answered my only question. Councillor Mutton.
Thank you, Chair. Can I say it looked impressive, even though it wasn't Westminster Road that was shown with all the rubbish. The one that had been cleared looked impressive, but I think that's only half the task. Same as I think arterial routes are only half the task. They're great for people visiting the city, but it's the people who live in the city and pay the council tax I'm more concerned about. And that's why we need all the streets, not just sprucing up, which is a phrase I coined ages ago. I'll take colleagues back to the council meeting in February of the year just gone, where the decision was taken to arrange a bulky lift. I believe I read somewhere recently that there's been over 7,000 cases of fly tipping in the city in the last 12 months. That's what the purpose was, to be able to clamp down on that so that visitors and local people don't walk up to the shops and see mattresses on a local green, or, you know, piles of rubbish stacked everywhere. My concern about sprucing all the pavements up is that we're still going to have thousands of people with bulky rubbish, and it's one thing to reduce the charge. Let's not forget, a lot of those people have been furloughed. A lot of those people have lost jobs. A lot of those people haven't got 2 pennies to rub together. You know, they can't afford that. We know there's some that fly tip because they're just ignorant people, you know, but there are a lot of people that can't afford it, you know, and that was the purpose of agreeing to a bulky lift. I would still like to see that go ahead. And it doesn't have to come from the pre-fund, sorry, the pre-funds for City of Culture year. Money had been found elsewhere. So I would ask Andrew, and I know it means a bit more work for him, so you can't sit there making videos all day, Andrew, to speak to Patricia and find a way to make certain people have the opportunity to get rid of bulky rubbish, not just a skip here and there. Elderly people can't necessarily, you know, carry heavy bulky stuff to a skip and chuck it in, you know, but to make certain that for 12 months at least, this city isn't blighted by fly tippers, and we can be proud of how our city looks, both for local people and visitors. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mutton. Andrew, I see you've got your hand up. Are you answering this rather than Sarah?
If I can, Chair, because John posed the question to me as I was pretty sure he would, and what have you on that. I think, John, I agree with everything you've said, and we will continue to. There are the option for skip collections there, and I'd put the request out to members if you are aware of neighbourhoods or individuals who, as John has highlighted, would struggle to do a community-led clear up and put stuff into a skip, then let us know, and we will look to use some of this resource to try and help, as John says, deal with some of that issue at the start rather than at the end. But you're right, John, this is about trying to get the whole city ready, clean and available and looking nice for when we are on show to the world. I think I remember saying at the when we were discussing these things a year ago, one of the most disappointing things when you drove into Hull during their City of Culture year is the city centre. You could have eaten your dinner off the streets, but every route that you took into Hull was strewn with litter. There was fly tipping and there were issues there. The idea is to give us a good start for the year, and I'd put the plea out to members. Use the email address that Sarah's given you and we'll send the stuff around again. If you have got communities that need help, we've also got some resource in here to be able to help those communities. I'm not going to be able to go into every place where we've got people who are perfectly capable of filling a skip on themselves, but if you have got people who are either struggling financially and can't manage the bulky lift cost, therefore we would provide them with a more bespoke service, and we'll try and tailor that to them, John.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Are you satisfied with that, John, or do you have a further question?
No, I'm satisfied with the words Andrew has used. As you would expect, I will be monitoring the situation very carefully.
I wouldn't expect anything less, John.
Thank you very much. I see Councillor McNicholas's hand, Jenny. Was Councillor McNicholas next?
Councillor Thay's next, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Thay.
Hiya. What we're doing with partner organisations like Citizen, because I've had issues in my ward where fly tipping has been reported to Citizen. Basically, a week later, nothing's been done by them. Are we going to be a lot tougher with them to remove fly tipping in a timely manner? And also, I don't know if this has been picked up on when you're going to clean the streets, but someone pointed this out to me a few months ago. And when I've driven around, I've had a look and I've noticed the areas between the before and after the crossing areas, pedestrian crossing areas, the little islands in the middle of the road, are usually have got loads of rubbish because people aren't driving over them. So if something gets dropped there or leaves are gathered there, it stays there for a long time. Are we going to make an effort to clean them? Because if you do drive around the city and notice and have a look, you will notice that they're pretty disgusting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thay. Are you taking that, Sarah?
Yeah, just to cover on Citizen. So obviously we're fully aware of the challenges that Citizen have on some of their sites, and as a result we now do work in partnership with them. So where the responsibility may fall on Citizen, we're using our resources to assist Citizen, because ultimately we want to reduce the issues for the residents who live on these sites. So we do work closely together and we do help each other where we can. Not always perfect, I appreciate, and if there is a specific site, Councillor Thay, that we need to put across the radar, please do just let me know where that is.
Thank you.
And yep, secondly, on what I think they call the splitter islands, which is the areas where because of where they are, they don't always get. I will pass that comment back to our street cleansing colleagues to see if they can provide any further guidance.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Are you happy with that, Councillor Thay?
Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you very much. Councillor McNicholas. And I know.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my apologies. I have to leave shortly. Excellent proposal. I understand the concerns about the change. Nevertheless, I just want to concentrate on enforcement. neighbourhood enforcement, because I mean, I've come to the conclusion that you can't have one without the other, because there are idiots within communities who will continue to dump, and I'm very keen to have an understanding and support of how we intend to communicate that we intend to prosecute these idiots, because they're spoiling it for everybody else, the enthusiasm. And I've availed myself of the facilities that Andrew talked about, skips, we've had local communities clearing entries and so on, to great effect, and then we find that somebody's dumped yet again. So what information is there and about enforcement, and what do we intend to do to communicate?
Thank you very much, John. And Andrew, I see your hand raised.
If I can, Chair. So, John, I'm very happy to sort of come back around members. We've as part of this project, we've recruited an extra number of enforcement officers to just support this project, to help follow round where we've done the cleaning and the clear up of areas, to then make sure they go back 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, to catch exactly that sort of thing that you've talked about, John. What I will also do, I think I put something in the chat as well, our enforcement teams are split sort of by area and by discipline, so I'll just get a ready reckoner of contacts round to ward members as well, so that they know who to contact for their area for fly tipping enforcement directly and those sorts of things as well, because where that happens, it can prove very very effective and what have you. If I can, Chair, as well, can I just maybe put a plea out as well to elected members on partners like Citizen? I think Sarah's team are doing a good job in trying to improve our relationships and joint working with Citizen. We can't do, in the long, medium and long term, we cannot do everything for everybody. And I would ask members to keep their pressure on partner organisations as like Citizen, where they need to clear up areas as well. We will do the best we can between now and the end of the City of Culture or the end of the Commonwealth Games, but we're going to need that pressure, and an email from a ward member always goes a long way with Citizen for getting and other organisations for getting those things done. So I'd ask you to keep your pressure on, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much. I don't see any more hands, Jenny. Is that right? Oh, sorry.
Councillor Heaven's just put hers up.
Heaven. Yes, Councillor Heaven.
Thank you, Joe. I did have my hand up and then I thought you'd seen it, so I just removed it. So I just think it's just really, this is fantastic for the residents of Coventry, and what Councillor Mutton said is it's really for the citizens feeling pride of their city, and what Andrew said is music to my ear, not just mainly main roads that you're coming where you experience in Hull, but everywhere in the city. So the residents, the taxpayers feeling proud of their city and seeing that change is just so amazing, so embracing. The bit that I am now noticing is why I want to raise this. This is a question maybe you could look into, that apart from fly tipping, we're noticing it because of a lot of traffic management work. There's been a lot of signage, sandbags and corners, being left aside and abandoned when the work is done. Is there a way that we can communicate and make those people, highways or contractors, responsible when they do finish the work? They don't just dump their stuff. Sometimes they even dump it in bushes, and then it's so, I know people who go out on their own and do litter picking, and they just see that, send me pictures and say, it physically is impossible to lift it. So I think it's some communication to those who are doing work on the highways to be able to take responsibility in cleaning after themselves, and what's the consequences if they're not doing that, because obviously we want to make sure that this, when it comes in, we want to keep the legacy and continue this, our city feeling proud and looking clean. So there's that level, that if you could do that communication, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heaven. Andrew, you signalled to come in.
Just before Andrew comes in, I'm ever so sorry, but can I give my apologies? I've got to take Mal to an appointment, and I thought that the meeting might be finished by now. So I need to give my apologies if that's okay.
Thank you very much, John.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Hope everything's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers.
Andrew, would you like to come in now?
Thanks, Linda. Matty, you picked on one of my biggest bugbears, which is traffic management contractors who support the work in the highways, leaving their barriers and particularly half-rotten sandbags that they can't be bothered to pick back up again. The work that we're doing around the arterial routes and the streets, the crews who are starting that work in earnest in the next week or so have got the instruction to pick all of that stuff up and bring it back to the depot. I then intend producing a list, and we're all getting a fairly strongly worded letter, I think is the best way I'd put it, to start off with, from us about their use of that. If I find any of them belong to Colin Knight, in our own highways department, I've told him it'll cost him a pint of beer per sign to have them back again. So I agree with you entirely, and it is something that's on our radar to deal with.
Thank you very much. If I find either of you in the Greyhound, I will know what's occurred. Wish we could. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Heaveney, are you happy with that response?
Yes. So we're going to see some change. Just one more question. Sarah, you shared the email address, mondaycleanup@Coventry. Is that something we can share with residents, and they can contact you to let you know about their road that needs cleaning up?
Councillor, we're asking that we don't share it with residents because we don't want 100 people in one street letting us know that there's a problem. So we have set that up specifically for councillors for you to be able to forward it to us. But yeah, we're asking please that that's kept just for councillors, if that's okay.
Residents can use the usual channels through the contact centre, etc., and we will try and pick those up and count them in there. But we were trying to funnel this through areas that are important to residents and communities as a whole, rather than, as Sarah said, having 100 emails from Stychel Avenue, for example.
Thank you, Andrew. Are you happy with that now, Councillor Heaven?
I am. Just one more thing, because I've been looking at the website where communities, if they want to do litter picking, get engaged with us. I just wonder if we could review that page and make it more welcoming and more community active related. It does have, I mean, I'm not trying to be critical, I'm just saying it's kind of encouraging of the tools that we offer for them and promoting that for individual responsibilities for those people who want to be more active, doing, you know, making sure that their city or roads are clean, just to give it more of a marketing angle into it.
Thank you. Andrew, you wanted to come back?
We will have, yeah, we'll of course look at that, Councillor Heaven. One of the challenges we've had through this year, we normally have quite a good programme of community clear-ups throughout the year, outside of City of Culture and all the rest of it, and you know, with hundreds of them happening, supported by either the Rangers or by Street Pride and what have you. One of our problems this year obviously has been we normally take and lend the kit or provide the kit, like litter pickers and things like that. One of the problems has been how we then bring back and sanitize and clean the kit to get it back out again, because quite often it would go out on a Saturday and then go out again on a Sunday. We're working through that, and we will then look to advertise that better once we have a full and proper process for it.
And if I can just add to that for Councillor Heaven as well, that we are developing a bespoke webpage for Cov Clean Streets, which will also provide further information and allow us to put on those before and afters and really show people what's happening and the differences.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah and Andrew. I don't see any other hands. Councillor Heatherton, would you like to come back in before we move to the recommendations?
No, I'd certainly take on board what Councillor Heaven has just said about the website. That has to be better and inviting, and it's encouraging people. I would like elected members, if possible, when they know that the teams are in their wards, is to try and get the photographs and put it on their Facebook pages, because we see the response from the residents is that they love it. They absolutely love it. And from that comes people who want to then keep get a team together and make sure it's kept that way. So if we can do that, because the social media outlets that we have are really very powerful. We know that people won't go online sometimes for other things, but they do look on Facebook, etc. I think that's the way forward here, because as I say, I'm a bit evangelical about these things. I think you know that, and but it's for a good cause, isn't it? Because as I said at the start, the difference it makes when people come out of their homes and they look around and they feel that pride, they feel clear. It makes a world of difference to them. We can do all the big things in the world, but you know what? That is what matters to them. So yes, so thank you, Chair. Really appreciate you giving me the time today. And again, it's thanks to the team who are doing the work. Thank you.
Absolutely, and looking at the video clip and looking at the photographs, it absolutely splendid work. Moving to the recommendations, before I ask if anyone has any further recommendations, Jenny, could you read out the recommendations that we've got, please?
There aren't any specific recommendations with this item, so it's just whether members have got anything else that they would like to recommend.
Thank you. Do any members have any recommendations? Take that as a no. So thank you very much, everyone. Moving then to item 7, the work programme and outstanding issues.
I'm just getting to the item on the, had to reload the presentation. Oh, missed it. There we go.
Thank you.
So obviously we've got one more meeting left of this municipal year, where we're looking, obviously related to some of the issues that we've discussed today, looking at the outcome of the fly tipping surveillance project and also the highways infrastructure asset management plan at the next meeting. Chair, Councillor Abbott's got her hand up.
Yes, I just saw. Thank you, Jenny. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Chair. Do we have a proposed date when we can bring the item on residents' parking permits yet? We've been asking for this since last June.
We haven't got a date for that one yet, but Councillor Heatherton's got her hand up.
Yes, Councillor Heatherton.
We had a meeting yesterday, Faye. It's just to say that we're almost there. And if you can just bear with us, we know within the next few weeks, a month perhaps latest, is that we should be able to sort of put something, the proposals that we've come up with, we should be able to put that to you. I know how difficult it's been. Residents keep wanting to know what's happening in the future, and there has been some difficulties with finding out about Section 106 monies. We have cleared all that up now, and so we are moving forward. So it's a matter of weeks, Faye. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heatherton. Are you happy with that, Councillor Abbott?
Yes and no. I mean, I understand we've got to go through a process, but I mean, this is something residents have been asking about since June, and the original request wasn't necessarily just about the solution. It was about looking at how we got into the situation that we were in the first place.
Thank you. Councillor Heatherton, would you like to come back?
Yes, I think that all those things, we will, when we come to you, you'll be able to see for yourself how we've dealt with those things. There has been an inconsistency across the city in the way things have been applied. That is what we're looking at. That shouldn't be happening. And yes, exactly what you've said. How did we get ourselves into this situation? So clearly, I'm not going to go into those details yet. We will come with the report and we'll make sure that we have covered all the issues. And if you want to contact me on other things, please do so outside of this meeting, and we'll make sure that we cover everything that you've asked. Thank you.
Thank you. You're happy with that now, Councillor Abbott?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do you want to continue then, Jenny?
So obviously March is the last meeting. So there are several items that obviously we haven't been able to cover this year, but they will continue on the work programme and be carried forward to next year, particularly some of the housing issues.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Moving then on to item 8. I haven't had any other items of public business notified to me, and so I declare this meeting closed. And thank you very much everyone for your attendance, and thank you to officers and to Councillor Heatherton for your attendance, and which I think has been a very, very good meeting. Within the main, congratulations going to our officers for the sterling work that they do. Thank you very much.